If solitude and a stealthy approach to your favorite fishing grounds are things that you crave, then stick around.
Everything you'll need to know to become a better kayak angler is coming up on this week's Florida Insider Fishing Report, which starts now.
Welcome to the Florida Insider Fishing Report, presented by Yamaha.
Welcome back to the Florida Insider Fishing Report. Y'all may recognize this familiar face standing next to me, Captain Jim Ross from the Central East region. Jim, thank you so much for filling in for Rick this week. Are you ready for some yak talk?
It's my pleasure. I cannot wait to start talking about kayaks because there are so many guys in my region, in the Central East region, around the Space Coast, that are doing it now.
Yep.
We've got a lot of goodies at the workbench tonight, the new product segment. We're gonna have a ball with this show.
There's a lot going on, that's for sure. But before we see who's grabbing their paddles first, let's see what the CCA Workbench Wonder has up his sleeve right over here.
The
Dave.
Workbench Wonder.
Yeah, you know.
I like that one.
Yeah, we've heard it before, but we're bringing it back for 2025.
Yeah, I like the iteration.
So you've got a lot of kayak stuff here, I see.
I do. I talked to my brother. You know, my brother Mark Farrell up in Niceville. You know, he spends a lot of time with a soggy bottom in a kayak, so
Perfect.
he's going to give us a little bit of his wisdom.
Perfect, sounds good. All right, the Startron Central West region is no stranger to conjuring up some great kayak fishing. So Captain Jeff Page, give us some pointers.
Right, and you know, it goes back to the early to late mid-90s when one of our finer tackle stores in our region, the Economy Tackle in Sarasota, started selling kayaks when they weren't even that popular, and a man named Al Hertzfeld had a vision of what now has become as popular as flatboats. It's not uncommon to see 20, 30 kayaks out in the area fishing hard, and I mean, they've really dialed it in with the kayaks, and now a lot of the kayaks are made specifically for fishing. And when I say by that, I mean they're wider design, they're sit on top. But a couple things that's really cool about our region, you guys, is that there is lots of areas that you can launch publicly, public access areas that maybe aren't boat ramps, but they're cleared out areas that you can slide your kayak through the mangroves. And if you do a little bit of homework, and with the way the Google Maps are on your phones these days, you can find these areas, and they'll save you a lot of paddling time, which makes for an easier day of fishing and not so much paddling. Now, that being said, like I said, the sit-on-top kayak is probably the better one for fishing, and you can start with a soft plastic mushroom anchor to anchor it up if you want to, if you get in some good fish, or you can move up to the Power Pole Micro, a 12-volt lithium battery pack operated shallow water anchor that goes up and down 200 times on one battery charge. And then you can get out and wade, or you can just fish out of your kayak. And when you want to move on, just power pole up, power pole down. So that being said, times of year, and it's winter time and it's hard to get back into areas. Once again, the kayak, I heard you mention stealth, Bree, and that is a key component when it comes to kayak fishing. And we have some kayak fishing guides as well as tournament fishermen in our region that are really good at teaching people about kayak fishing. One of them is my good friend Jesse Redfish Wright that fishes out of Betts Tackle in Largo. And then there's a number of kayak guides down in Charlotte Harbor and also in South Tampa Bay and Sarasota Bay. Good way to find them. Just Google kayak fishing guide in our region and you'll find them. I've got a couple photos tonight. The first one is of a longtime kayak angler, tournament angler, Joe Forsyth out of Sarasota with a nice redfish, and you can see he has his measuring board there with him. And my second one is of my good friend Jesse Redfish Wright with his personal best snook, and he's pretty pumped up about it because I think it took him up in the mangroves and he got it out.
Pumped up face for sure.
That is the Ric Flair.
That's what he's doing.
I'm telling you.
Yeah,
Love
man.
Well, tell us about the speckled trout, Paige.
You know, I'm just a trout fisherman, and we just had a successful charity tournament to benefit some of my health problems I've been having. It was put on by Kent Hickman and the crew at the National Redfish Tour, Power Pole National Redfish Tour, and Rick and his wife Kathy even fished it. and there was a lot of big fish caught. I think 16 pounds, yes, and it was all photo and release. So there was a lot of big fish caught in our region, in the Startron Central West region. I think out of the top 5, 4 of the teams were in my region. That being said, this time of year, as you know, Jimmy, I like to key in on 2 different areas. One area is where there's lots of small bait like pilchards and glass minnows. And then the other area, which I'm still keying in on for the bigger trout, are where the big mullet schools are, like black mullet and silver mullet. Now, once I find those areas, they're going to be anywhere from 1 foot deep to 6 foot deep. I like to use topwater plugs like the Jaywalker, Berkeley Jaywalker, or the stick shad Berkeley, and I like them both in that chrome or the bone pattern. Now, some of the areas that, to be more specific, are the flats off Rattlesnake Key, Emerson Point, Palmasola Bay, and then down south, Biddens Creek, and Bull and Turtle Bay. I got a really nice photo tonight with a young angler with a big trout that he caught with Captain Will Osborne out of Cortez, Florida. Moving offshore, the mangrove snapper bite, Jimmy, has been really good. It's been good since like February. Back when they were catching all the hogfish, they were having mixed in with nice mangs, and the hogs have kind of vanished, but the mangs are still biting good. 110 feet, hard bottom areas and ledges. Live shrimp have been working well, but they seem to be hitting the cut bait and the live pilchard a little better now because the water's up in the 70s. 3.0, 4.0 Trocor circle hook with 30 to 40 pound fluorocarbon leaders, been getting the job done. And also, Kalen Olayer out of Stump Pass Marina has had no trouble getting his limit down there out of Stump Pass. My last species, red grouper, big red grouper, remain consistent, 90 feet out to 150 feet. Smaller areas of hard bottom from New Pass down to Venice and even south of there. And live pinfish have been getting the bigger fish. A lot of guys are getting their limits with frozen sardines. And my last photo tonight is a pair of big fire truck red groupers from Captain Bo Johnson aboard the Real Box'em.
Bo's putting it on them. Well, thanks a lot, Paige. I'll take your daiquiri deck hotspots for here. Way to kick us off tonight with a great Central West region report. Paige says numerous 20-plus inch trout hitting Berkeley Jaywalkers and Berkeley stick shads in the chrome pattern. You want to look for them over the grass flats around the Long Bar area or off the grass flats in Bull and Turtle Bay. And then offshore, decent run of kingfish and Spanish mackerel around the bait schools from Anna Maria south to Venice. It's hit or miss, but if you locate some bird action over the top of some of those busting Spanish and busting kingfish, you should catch those fish, Bree. That is such a great, fun thing to do, especially if you have kids because it's so visual, running and gunning those bird packs.
Yep, and it's nonstop fun for the whole family.
Yes,
but
it
Jeff
is.
Page did a great job. Great pictures coming out of the Central West region. But now the Black Oak LED Keys region is the perfect place to break out the paddle and catch a few. And Captain Ridge Murphy is just the guy to give us the best spots. Go for it, Ridge.
You know, kayaking and paddleboarding is a huge activity all throughout the Black Oak LED region. From creeping up on redfish and snooks on the flats or paddleboarding the early morning sunrise for a quick workout, here in the Florida Keys, kayaking is a nice way to explore the local waterways and check out the creeks. Some cool places to check out would be Flamingo in the Everglades, John Penny Camp, Garden Cove, Indian Key Historic Park, Big Pine Key, and of course Key West. These are all great places that anyone can go for a nice day out on the water. And as far as fishing from a kayak goes in my region, lots of guys are fishing from the boat ramps, working light tackle rods and around the islands and the creeks for snooks, reds, juvenile tarpons, and mangrove snappers. For the extreme kayakers, some of the guys are paddling from the edges of the bridges to catch Goliath groupers and tarpons and the occasional snappers. But be mindful, guys, because the current is really strong, and make sure you have a VHF radio and a safety flag and a bright shirt because you're in a boater's world and you want to make sure that they see you. I have a photo of RM Media's very own Colin Bukowski with a nice snook that was caught on his kayak fishing out in Florida Bay with a few of his buddies.
Gorgeous fish.
Yeah, man. Offshore fishing here in the Florida Keys has been really good with all the crazy weather that we've been having coming through. With the late cold fronts that we've been getting, the pelagic fishing has been good to the charter boat guys all up and down the line. A mixed bag of tunas, mahis with the occasional sailfish mixed in, and the guys are kite fishing on the deeper edges from 150 to 250 feet of water, looking for the blue water, current breaks, and weed lines. Live bait has been the way to go offshore fishing, using goggle eyes and pilchards on an 8.0 to 5.0 eagle claw billfish hook with 30 to 40 pound leader underneath the kite. Make sure that you're matching your hook to your bait size, and if you're not sure what I mean by that, go to Captain Rick Murphy's YouTube channel and watch how to use big live mullet for catching big snooks. It's a great video explaining a hookup ratio to bait ratio. I have a photo of Captain James Hagan off the Yabba Dabba Doo with a really nice sailfish that they got on their trip earlier this week.
Well, let's go inshore.
Inshore fishing has been surprisingly pretty good with all the wind that we've been having. The wind has gotten the water nice and low in the backcountry, and the snooks have been phasing on the edges of the channels and the deeper holes and on the edges of the flats of Florida Bay. Throw bass assassin paddle tails rigged weedless because the grass is pretty bad, and you can sight fish or blind fish in the cleaner water and the moats or the potholes, and you're going to look for the yellow fins as you pull along the edges of the channel. And if you're going to look, you want to look in the lower parts of the water column for those fish. I have a photo of Santana Murphy with a really nice snook that she caught on a Bass Assassin P&V with a Fenwick rod and a Penn Slammer.
Dang, whose wife is that? She's so pretty. That's your wife.
You outkicked your coverage, bro.
You know, a fish that we always have in my region that's really good, and we don't talk a whole lot about it, is the trout. And it seems like everywhere you go right now, from Key Largo to Flamingo, is loaded with big trout and big muds on the lakes and the high current pinch points. You're going to throw gulp shrimp on a 1/4 ounce to 1/2 ounce jig head underneath a popping cork on your light tackle Fenwick rods. And if you get into an area where you're catching lots of jacks or ladyfish, there will be a trout nearby, and you're going to work these areas by drifting through them with a heavy jig head past the ladyfish. And this is a good way that you can get the kids out on the water and have a good time.
Ridge, that was a fantastic report. I'm going to take your hot spots from Scientific Angler for the Keys region from here. Captain Ridge says snook fishing in the moats and potholes on the edges of the deeper channels. Throw bass assassin paddle tails rigged weedless because the grass has been pretty bad, or offshore, mixed bag of pelagics using live baits on the deeper edges. Look for the blue water in 150 to 250 feet of water while you're kite fishing for those tuna, mahi, and sailfish, Bree.
Sounds like a perfect day to me. All right, let's dive on into some tournaments going on in the Florida Keys. First is the Marathon Premier Sailfish Tournament supporting Mission Fishin', a group that organizes fishing trips for special needs kids and their families. Next is the Marathon Offshore Bull and Cow Dolphin Tournament, where a guaranteed $18,000 cash prize awaits the anglers who catch the largest bull and cow dolphin fish combined. Then anglers compete for cash prizes for the heaviest dolphin fishing in the Nick Sheehan Dolphin Rodeo in Tavernier, with proceeds funding scholarships in Nick's memory. And finally, Fish for a Cause and cash prizes in the 19th annual Mother's Day Dolphin Tournament to support Habitat for Humanity of the Middle Keys, May 9th and 10th in Marathon. For more information on Keys tournaments, go to flakeys.com. But you know what, Jim? Hold tight, everyone, because Dave is getting all the things ready for rigs and techniques at the CCA workbench, aren't you, Dave?
I've got all the things.
All of them that you're going to put on your tiny little kayak.
There is a lot of stuff.
There is.
But you really don't want to do that. It's going to be one of the first things I talk about.
Okay, well, can't wait to hear it.
all the stuff.
All right, and then we're paddling into the Northeast region with Captain Tommy Derringer, so make sure you stick around, and we'll be right back.
The Florida Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. Fenwick. Feel everything. ACR. Less search, more rescue. Scientific Anglers. Failure is not an option. Penn. Let the battle begin. Berkeley Pro Spec Chrome. And Daiquiri Deck. Food, drinks, friends.
Well, guys, we're at the CCA workbench, and we're going to talk with Dave about rigs and techniques for kayak fishing tonight. So, Dave, you have got a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, I called up my brother, and he bass fishes in a kayak constantly, and actually goes off into the bay up there in Niceville. So he had a lot of tips for me. The first thing he said was less is more. Just bring 2 rods at the max. Maybe 3, but you probably don't want to bring more than that, because you have a chance of getting tipped over. So the less stuff that you have, the less stuff you can lose.
The less,
he said.
that's a good.
And just bring them already rigged up with your favorite 2 or 3 things that you are going to be wanting to throw.
Okay.
And next, he says that longer rods work better. These these HMG rods here. These are 7 foot long, 30, 24 ton graphite. The medium fast spinning rod and a medium heavy bait caster. The spinning rod you'd use for your shrimp, your more finesse baits, maybe your plastic worms. The heavy one you want to use with your bait caster. You want to use your frogs and your big swim baits and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Titanium guide frames, super thin zirconian inserts in there, contoured butt, so when you got it in your gut, it doesn't poke a hole in you.
Yep.
That kind of thing. Little tapered foregrip in the front, so you can lay your finger alongside the rod blank and feel the bites. They're very strong, but they're still sensitive.
HMGs.
Yeah, and he said since you can get into some fairly gnarly places, which is the whole key, there's going to be a lot of cover. So you want to use some Pro Spec Chrome braid, 30-pound minimum.
Okay.
Because you're going to be throwing in lily pads, logs, around
Mangrove
trees.
roots.
Exactly. You're gonna be up in that nasty stuff, so you might as well be able to pull them out of it if they get up in there.
The theme I'm hearing here is tackle up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you can get to places that other people may not get to, catching bigger fish than what other people may not catch.
And the fish will be getting into those same areas as well.
Okay.
So that 30 to 60 pound braid is what you want to get, and that's 8 carrier braid. So even if it's heavy, 30, 60 pounds, it's still soft and will still cast.
And
a nice 40 pound at least. 40 pound fluoro leader. Sometimes you can just tie straight too, but expect to get wet. So carry a dry bag, and make sure all your boxes have a nice O-ring in them. All this Plano stuff, the little Plano dry boxes. You put your phone, your wallet, stuff that if you do tip over, you don't want to get ruined.
So I don't have a kayak, and I use one of these in my boat anyway.
Do too. I have one in my skiff.
I love these boxes.
When everybody gets on the boat, I say, okay, put all your stuff in here, your phones or whatever, so nothing gets wet. And, don't go too far. Always remember, take note of how far you've gone, and remember that you have to get back.
Okay.
It's especially important when you're paddling, not so much as the guys who have the pedals. Because the
trolling motors.
Yeah, or the trolling motors. If you're going to be paddling, and make sure you know which way the wind's blowing, and have some way to hold your position. Not only for fishing, but if you have to paddle back against the wind, you can paddle until you get tired, stake off for 5 or 10 minutes,
or drop a
mushroom anchor
like Paige was talking about,
and rest up and then get going again.
So one of these style of anchor pins works really good.
Yeah. And then carry a good pair of pliers, a nice pair of pliers that can get wet, a titanium pair of pliers, something like that. Make sure it's tethered off to something, because boy, you can really drop stuff over a kayak a lot easier than you can on a boat. Make sure it's tethered to you or to the boat somehow.
And when you're fighting that fish, things that are in the boat could be tethered as well.
Right.
There's a lot of things that you can secure in the boat without letting them fall out. So tethering anything that can be tethered.
Exactly.
Right.
And set your drag a little tighter than you normally would, because you have to make up for the fact that you're not on solid ground.
Yeah.
When you go to set the hook, you're going to be pulling the kayak towards the fish. So, make sure you set your drag just a little bit tighter. Those are all things that my brother Mark Farrell.
The laws of physics apply.
Yeah. So next we got some gear here. We're going to start with these Trocar swim blades, the TK178, 314, the 714, and the 514. That's just 3, 7/0, 5/0. And, they have you can use those for your swim baits or your frogs. They got a nice big spring keeper on there, so it'll hold all your soft plastics on there real good. Next, we have the Juke, the Berkeley Juke right here. It's got a darting action that imitates a dying bait fish, but it goes pretty straight if you just retrieve it. So this is, it's not swimming all over the place. It goes in a straight line. So this would be a good thing if you're moving from one spot to the other. Just toss out that Juke and troll it.
Just troll it, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a great way to,
come in a couple of sizes.
Yeah, catch fish when you're moving from one spot to another, and it doesn't go real deep. So it's really good in shallow water. And then you got the cutter there, which is another shallow one. Rolls side to side real good. And the Manic Shrimp, we have that spinning rod out there. If you want to put, if you're throwing a popping cork or you want to rig that on a jig head. Just the same thing you do with a live shrimp.
These are surprisingly effective on wary fish.
Yeah?
It's a lot of guys are catching snook around jetties that you primarily use live bait, and they're catching them on these artificials. So
That's
they
crazy.
definitely work.
That's crazy. Yeah, and make sure you have a good collapsible net. You know, oh, there goes a rod.
Grab it.
Got it. So yeah, make sure you have a good collapsible net, something that you can store easily. Because
Well, I tell you what,
it's hard to control a fish.
That's
on the
a
side.
lot of stuff, but it's very little stuff overall. You don't have to carry the whole tackle box.
Yeah,
so.
don't-
A lot to think about, you know, plus the
Exactly.
physical fatigue. Mad respect for kayak anglers. It's kind of like doing one of these.
Yeah.
Did I get it?
Paddle upwind or up current
There's a
before
lot
you
going
get tired.
on. A lot going on. All right, well, paddle sport fishing of any kind in the Northeast region should be on everyone's bucket list. So let's hear why with Captain Tommy. What's going on, Tommy?
Hey, Bree, what's up? You know, it's yak attack time. The yakers love the Northeast region. Man, I see so many kayakers out there these days. And, you know, there's a ton of different reasons. One really good reason is like the guys were just talking about, you can get into some really cool spots on those super skinny kayaks and paddleboards. I mean, we have some huge tides in my region. They can range from 5 to 6 feet of water that's moving during a 6-hour period. And you can use your kayak to access some areas that you just can't get to in the boat because it gets too shallow. You can even get out and drag the kayak across a dry sandbar if you need to. And some areas that you might need to do that in and that are real popular places to kayak are the Pellissier Flats and the Tomoka Basin. That's in the south end of the region. Then here in St. Augustine, we have Guana Lake and the 206 Bridge. And in Jacksonville, we have Chickapit, as well as creeks like Clapboard and Simpsons. That's just a few of the more popular spots. But really, I'm seeing kayaks in just about every area of the backcountry these days. You know, access points, there's quite a bit more of those things than there was in the past. And apparently, there's some really in-shape people out there that love to paddle for miles on end. They must have crazy muscles and must have odd six-pack abs. It gets super shallow in a lot of those areas of low tide, like I said, but the fish will stay in some of those slightly deeper pockets, even when most of the water is completely out on even a negative low tide. Now, being able to fish those shallow areas, even on that low tide, that's one of the main reasons so many people are taking to kayaking and or paddle boarding. Now, this time of year, those redfish, they are in the skinny stuff. Especially this week, we've had crazy low tides, and I know that's where I would be if I was out getting my yak attack on this weekend. And speaking of redfish, I've got a picture here. This is Blake Belts with a nice redfish that he caught from his kayak. And that just so happened to be a star tagged redfish.
What?
That won him a new boat,
Damn.
a Yamaha motor and trailer. Guys, don't forget to sign up for this year's star tournament. It's, you know, anybody can win it. I know there's a bunch of tagged fish out there this year. It starts on May 24th. Go to ccaflstar.com. You can win over $500,000 in prizes they're giving away. So pretty awesome tournament. Now, staying inshore, guys, the trout bite has continued to improve this week. You know, our spring patterns are pretty much in full swing, even though it has chilled off just a little bit temperature-wise. But with that early morning higher water, top water is going to be my go-to for those trout. You know, last week we caught a bunch of trout on the Berkeley Jaywalker 100. They seem to like that smaller 100 size last week, although a couple of our bigger trout have come off of the 120 version. So get a couple of each and see which one they like better. My clients have also had the chance to toss that new Berkeley Gulp. It's called the Nemesis Prawn Curltail. Man, that has been a trout killer. I've just been rigging it on a 1/4 ounce jig head and having my clients bounce it through the creek holes. The trout and the redfish both have been absolutely smashing that thing. And I've got another photo here. This is my man Eddie with a nice trout that he caught with me on a Berkeley Jaywalker top water plug first thing in the morning.
Beautiful sunrise. Well, let's go off.
Yeah, it was a cool sunrise that morning for sure. Look at that calm water. That was very rare. It's been
You
very windy.
photoshopped that.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I haven't seen
Feels
it
like
that
that
calm in
lately.
like 3 years. Tell us
Right.
about the offshore stuff, buddy.
Yeah, Jim, man. The water temperature is right for those cobia right now out back, but the weather, just speaking of the wind, hasn't allowed many of us to get out there and look for them. You know, the ocean's been rough pretty much every day for the last couple of weeks, but a few buddies of mine have braved the chop, and they have caught a few cobia. It seems like the manta rays were south last week. And from what I've heard, they've been moving a little bit more north through the region right now. Of course, that can change daily, but if you see a window to get out there where it could be calm, now might be a good time to go check it out. Look for those manta rays in about 25 on out to about 60 feet of water. Bring a few live finger mullet or some kind of bigger live bait. I've heard that the few cobias that have been caught, they've been a little bit on the picky side. If I get out there, I will probably bring some live bait, but man, the saltwater assassin 6-inch sea shad, it's hard to say, paddle tail, rarely gets turned down, and that has become my absolute favorite cobia lure. Now, also offshore, I figured we'd talk a little bit more about wahoo before what we would call our season is pretty much over. They're still catching some nice wahoo offshore when the weather allows for it. We got the full moon happening this weekend, and it's a good bet there's going to be a few of those wahoo around. Live baiting for those wahoo has pretty much stolen the show this year. Most of the large fish, or at least the ones I've seen, have been coming off slow trolling the live baits. Of course, you can absolutely still catch some nice wahoo high speeding, and a big number of anglers in the region still go that route. And I've got one last picture here. This is our good buddy, Captain Gibbs and crew. He sent me this picture. That's himself with Frank Vining and Prince Prinus with a monster 100-pound wahoo that they caught east of St. Augustine. That was a lot of sushi right
Gibby,
there. I'm sure.
come on.
That is some beautiful sushi.
I didn't
right
get the
there.
invite. I didn't get the invite for the sushi, man.
I didn't hear my
That's
phone ring either, Tommy. Don't
rude.
feel like the Lone Ranger. Well,
rude.
thanks, buddy. We're going to take your strike
Bye.
zone hotspots for the Northeast
Thanks, guys.
region from here. Captain Tommy says redfish and trout on the Berkeley Jaywalker topwater plug at first and last light, and finger mullet are thick and getting chased along the grass lines on those higher stages throughout the region. And then offshore, cobia along the beaches, look for the manta rays or any kind of floating debris in 25 to 60 feet of water, Bree.
And look for that window.
That's
window.
been,
It's been relentless.
They just blew straight through
weekend.
Central East region. It just frustrates me because we have such good cobia fishing when the conditions are right, but we just haven't had the right conditions.
They ain't been right. Well, Jim, Tommy mentioned it a little bit, but did you know that any fish you catch from a kayak this summer can be entered in this CCA Florida Star competition presented by Yamaha? Did you know
Wow,
that?
I did not know that.
Now you do. Most inshore and offshore species can be entered in the Native Watercraft Kayak Division presented by Humminbird Electronics for a shot at winning a new Slayer Propel Max or a share of $500,000 in prizes. The summer-long competition begins Memorial Day weekend and ends Labor Day. Plus, if you get registered before April 30th, you'll receive 2 entries in the triple header raffle drawing for 3 different boats. Go to ccaflstar.com for more details. It is possible. Tommy showed us his angler with a tagged.
Well, the thing about it
redfish.
is you can enter the tournament. You don't even have to go and fish, and you can still have a chance at winning a boat.
I know. It's kind of brainless, right?
Yeah.
Just do it. All right, it's my co-host time to shine as we've got your Central East region captain coming right up. And then we're casting into the Northwest region with Captain Jeff Hageman. So don't drop that paddle. We'll be right back.
The Florida Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Power Pole, Total Boat Control, Berkeley, Your Fish, Our Science, Bahio, Blue Light Blocking, Radically Clear Polarized Fishing Sunglasses, Guy Harvey, every purchase helps support the health of our oceans and marine life. Penn, let the battle begin. Kubota, together we do more. And Heroes on the Water, paddle, fish, heel.
Welcome back. Jim, as you know, Yamaha is always at the top of their game, and Captain Rick is always filled with a little bit of wisdom. So let's hear what the two of them are bestowing upon us this week, shall we?
Let's go.
Hey guys, Captain Rick Murphy here, and I want to tell you about some of the cool features that Helmmaster has to offer. Now, Helmmaster has been around a little while, but guess what? As I've gotten this 36 Front Runner, the one thing we did is we paired it up with the new 350s, and what really I love about this feature is, as you can see, I'm holding into the wind. I'm not touching anything. I got Chase and Mikey back here and Ridge, and they're putting baits on, and guess what? There's not all this steer in the boat trying to hold it into the wind. Now, when it's really blowing hard, like right now, it's blowing 15 to 18 miles an hour, I might have to adjust the speed just a little bit. The key here is hands-free. If you're a single charter captain and you got twin outboards, you can put Helmmaster on your boat, and guess what? You can go back there, put your kite out one at a time, you can put your baits on, and guess what? It's sitting there holding exactly where I want it to do. Now, if I want to turn the boat a little right or a little left, all I got to do is push the button to go left or right. The other part that I like, on the electronic throttles, I can add or subtract RPMs by simply bumping the side here, up or down, 750, or I can push it down. Now, each time I bump that button, it's 50 RPMs. Beautiful. I can fish on this thing all day long as it's holding me into the wind. Remember that Helmmaster has a lot of different features. It has a joystick when docking and a lot of other things that you can do with it. If you have any questions about any Yamaha product, you can go to YamahaOutboards.com or you can go to your local Yamaha outboard dealer.
And there you have it from the mouth of Babe.
There you go.
He's Babe. All right, well, Jim, I know you've got a lot to say, and fishing spots in the Central East region kayakers can only dream of. So let's catch a memory with you this week and hear that report.
Let's do it. Well, you know, there's a lot of kayak anglers, and they're growing in numbers every day on the Space Coast area. And that reason is the Space Coast has an enormous number of kayak-friendly areas. Shallow flats in the Mosquito Lagoon, the Banana River, the Indian River Lagoon, the waterway that flow into Turnbull Creek, Turkey Creek, Satellite Canals, Sebastian River. There's tons of kayak-friendly opportunities for guys to get out there and use these types of watercraft. So, you know, even though we have a huge group of anglers in those near coastal waters, there's still guys that are plying out and getting out sort of in the offshore side of it as well, or not offshore, but near coastal side of it. And they're chasing tarpon, they're chasing king mackerel, they're chasing giant sharks and jacks and just all kinds of really, really cool stuff. So even though these are huge predators, you can chase them from these little lightweight plastic fishing platforms if you're tackled up and have the proper gear. Now, my inshore species this week is black drum, and the mangrove covered shorelines and the residential canals are holding great numbers of black drum right now. Look for dark shadows underneath the overhanging branches, and that'll give you an idea of where you need to be fishing, because you can see them laying up under there. Live or fresh dead shrimp, cut crab, or sand fleas are your top bait choices for the drum. And you want to try and tackle up a little bit, because a lot of these fish are running in the 10, 12, and even 15 pound class. So I've been tackling my guys up with a 4,000 size pin clash or a 4,000 size pin battle. That way I've got a bigger reel, more drag, larger line capacity, and be able to pull those fish out of those heavy roots and mangrove branches. Also, a 7-foot medium heavy action rod helps get that job done as well. And I've got one of those shoreline mangrove black drum right here in this picture that we had an angler out last week. Swinging offshore, it's kind of more of an inshore than it is an offshore, because we've had nothing but wind and nobody's been out, and so there's no sense in talking about things you can't go do. So let's talk about pompano on the beach, because you can do that. And Cocoa Beach right now, Melbourne Beach, and Playa Linda Beach are all holding good numbers of pompano, and anywhere from just outside the surf break out to the 20 or 30 foot depths once you can get back out in a boat. Now, on recent trips that I've been out and poked my nose out there and had the opportunity to do that, I've been getting pompano on small crabs, shrimp, and sand fleas. And I'm finding that if you fish those outflows coming off the beach, you can have a really good shot at catching pompano, and you can throw some whiting in there too. I've been getting my Skeeter 240 bay boat out there, and I'm using 15 to 20 pound test on my rigs. And I'll tell you, that submerged dredge pipe that's running up and down the beach right now, I'm finding schools of fish periodically schooling around that actual sand pipe. So you can drive along with your side scan, look at the sand pipe and find those schools, and then turn around, spot lock down, and fish them with your trolling motor and your Abyss batteries. Most of the pompano are running 14 to 16 inches. I got another picture here of a pompano, and that's the average size fish that you're gonna catch. That was Mike that came with me from Cocoa the other day. And then the snook bite's been out the chain. Lots of big fish, 35 to 40 inches. You can't hardly go fishing without catching a snook right now, whether it's a little one in the backcountry or whether it's a 40-incher along the bridges, the docks, anywhere from Sebastian all the way down to Wabasso, and then all the way around the North Causeway Bridge, South Causeway Bridge, the Oak Hill Channel. Everywhere you go, there's snook right now. Daytime, you want to use a croaker, a spot, or a mullet, or a shrimp. And then at night, you can use R&R flare hawks or swim baits like the Assassin Artemis shad, or a 5 to 6 inch long suspending bait or lip diving plug. They seem to be working really well. And as I mentioned before, the average snook is much larger than probably your keeper size. So tackle up and get ready, because they're a blast to pull on. And I've got one last photo here of a family that I took out the other day, and a nice assortment of those line siders that we caught while we were out with them there at Canaveral.
Those are a perfect size snook. Do those two little boys reel them in? Anything?
They actually got to help.
Yeah.
They're pretty tough, but they did get to
right.
help reel them in, which is it's a good accomplishment for a kid, because he can't always do it, but with a little assistance.
And then
he's going to grow, and then he's going to be there one day doing it all by himself.
Perfect. All right, well, here are the Rodan Marine Systems hotspots for the Central East region. Go ahead and rate them.
Fish the docks in the Indian River from Turkey Creek to Sebastian River. Use large mullet or live croakers on a circle hook with a heavy action pin rod for snook to 40 inches. And then offshore, if the ocean is fishable, troll skirted ballyhoo for dolphin near weed lines and temperature breaks in the 120 to 300 foot depths. So that's what's getting ready to start. We're going to have that report in the next couple of weeks about how the dolphin are picking up in the Central East region.
My favorite.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. All right, well, we're all about that peaceful, easy feeling in the Northwest region.
Yeah.
So, Captain Hag, tell us just how easy the paddle life is. Go for it.
Kayaks are a great and stealthy way to fish my region. Less expensive, pretty much maintenance free compared to a boat. Easy to transport. They even make paddle boards and kayaks that deflate and inflate, and you can put in a backpack and throw in the back of your trunk and go fishing. So, great to have. They can also get places most boats can't. As far as fishing spooky fish, you can be really stealthy with them. They're really hard to beat. You can cover a lot more ground than wading alone. Perfect for tailing redfish in my region. And there's also a ton of places to launch in my region. There's kayak trails in Fort DeSoto, Wheaton Island, Taladese Island. All has kayak trails and canoe trails. If you don't own one, you can actually rent them from most of those places and go out and see some of old Florida beautiful scenery and wildlife and get a workout to boot. So it's a great thing to have and a great way to fish, and can be really stealthy. Moving on inshore, Captain Jim Pollard of Big Daddy Sport Fishing reports a very good redfish bite right now. Captain Jim's finding large schools of redfish that are on the move. The best way is to slow down, and heavy chumming is his trick. He's targeting these redfish around big mullet schools. So 3/0 trocar circle hook, 4 foot, the 25-pound fluorocarbon leader, and Jim's looking for those larger schools of fish right now around those mullets. So move in there slowly, get up tide of them, up current of them, or downwind of them, and just push in real slow. And he's just chumming his way in until he gets them going, and then beating on them pretty good once he can push them into a hole. I also got a report of more redfish from Captain James Kerr out of Crystal River. He's in for a redfish bite right now. He says in full swing. Most of the redfish are moving into their warmer weather locations, and bait of choice right now has been a pinfish or a 1/4 ounce gold Johnson spoon. The old weedless spoon is really good and can be a really quick way to locate fish. I know we use those on the redfish trail, and you can use that bait and cover a lot of ground really good. It's a great artificial lure to locate fish. And he said right now the most productive time is the top of the tide. And I got a couple of photos here of a beautiful Crystal River redfish from Captain James and another Tampa Bay redfish from Captain Jim.
Very nice. Well, tell us about the kingfish.
Kingfish bites getting better and better every day. The water temperature is warming up. 30 to 70 feet of water from St. Pete to Tarpon Springs. You want to look for these fish around most of your artificial reefs and wrecks. Anything that's got a bait school around it is usually where the kingfish are going to be. Live thread fins, blue runners, number 4 wire with a stinger rig. You'll get a little bit more hookups and a lot more landed fish with that stinger rig. I've been doing a lot of short strike and eating baits really aggressively, so put that stinger rig on the back and you'll land some more fish. Staying offshore with Captain Rob Davenport of Big Nasty Charters out of St. Pete. Good grouper bite, red grouper bite right now in 90 to 140 feet of water. You're using a bottom rig with 60 to 80 pound fluorocarbon leader, a 6 to 8 trocar circle hook, and 6 to 8 ounces of lead. Redfin herring and a little bit of squid has been his bait of choice, and his go-to If the wind dies down a little bit and you can sneak out there, it's a great time to go. Right now the wind's been blowing pretty hard, but if you can sneak out and get out there, it's been a really good red grouper bite. And I got a photo here of Hannah Ray on a solo trip on the Big Nasty with a nice red grouper.
That is one. Well, I tell you what, Hag, that was a fantastic report. I'll take your Discover Crystal River, Discover Crystal River hotspots for the Northwest region from here. Got a little tickle in my throat there. Captain Jeff says snook on the outgoing tide around the mangrove points and pockets, and you want to use pinfish or sardines for those snook, and then offshore, hogfish, grunts, and sea bass on the flat rocks and hard bottom, and you can use some fresh cut shrimp on a knocker rig for those fish.
Discover Crystal River Northwest region is the same kind of tongue twister as 6-inch sea shad that Tommy said earlier. It's hard to say.
From Saltwater Assassin.
Saltwater Assassin. It's a lot of S's. We're just warming up over here. We're also gearing up with all sorts of new toys for the Taco Marine new products at CCA Workbench with none other than Dave Farrell. It's looking good over there, Dave.
Yeah, we've got a lot of cool stuff, and all of it are, you'd want to use on a kayak. So
oh, there we go.
Just so happens.
Just so happens. So perfect. Wow, who planned that?
Bonus round from Dave, right?
All right,
bonus
then
round.
Get ready for stealth mode in the Alto Equipment East region with Captain Mike Holliday, the stealthy one. We'll be right back. Stealth.
The Florida Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Alta Equipment Company, where uptime matters. Ameritrail, load, launch, relax. Abyss Battery, power your pursuit. Rodan, set it, forget it, catch more fish. Discover Crystal River, Florida. Bass Assassin and Saltwater Assassin, best lures, period. And Black Oak LED, never be left in the dark.
And we're trolling the edge with the Taco Marine new product segment at the CCA Workbench. Dave, you've got some really cool stuff here. This is stuff that I see myself using this kind of thing every single day. And then there's one new product in here where I'm kind of going, that's interesting.
Well, we're going to start over there with that Penn Spinfisher 7 spinning reel. It's a 4500 version, like I was saying. This would be a great one to have on the kayak because it's IPX5 sealed. It's got you can't get water in the drag system or the gearbox.
Interesting.
You can dunk that thing in the water and no water will get into it. It's got Penn's HT100 drag fiber drag in there.
One of the best in the business.
They're smooth as can be. 5+1 sealed stainless steel ball bearings. Full metal body and side plate, so if you hook a big fish, it's not going to be flexing all over the place. It's really solid. When you pick it up, you can feel it.
You can feel this is a durable reel designed for guys that need a durable type of gear.
It's got a nice big fat bail on it that's probably not going to bend on you like some of them do when you lay it in the bottom of the boat or something. Just a really, really nice reel. And it also comes in standard. Live liner version, which has a little drag that you can, a live bait drag, and it has a long cast model as well if you wanted to, maybe use it as a surf rod or, just.
Where do we find those?
Penreels.com.
Penreels.com.
Next we have Knockin' Tails, the Knockin' Cork. This is a really cool little durable hard plastic construction cork. It's made out of the same stuff that they make hard plastic lures out of. So you buy one of these things and you never, how most popping corks, if they're made out of styrofoam, they don't last that long.
Especially when the puffers pick at them.
Yeah, exactly. And these have stainless steel eyes, nice big rattles in there, that deep cup face on there if you're wanting to pop them. Just makes a really good sound. Sounds like fish busting bait on the surface. They cast extremely well because they got a little bit of weight to them.
Yeah, there's some weight to them. Yeah.
And they only have those 2 colors so far, but they're hoping to have 4 colors out later this year. And that's a really cool little popping cork, which I've never seen any like that before.
Knockin' Tail Lures. Okay. Interesting.
Next, we have the Berkeley Culp Dragon Tail, the saltwater dragon tail. This combines a really good action with that gulp scent, makes it an irresistible twitch bait. It's got that smooth body and that soft pointed tail. So you can put that on a jig, the Fusion 19 Berkeley swim jig and that swim bait, weighted swim bait hooks like we had before. Those things trout love those things. And you could fish them under that popping cork.
I was going to say,
too.
under the popping cork, this tail is kind of unique because whatever you do, you jig it up, you pop the popping cork, it makes the jig with the tail on it pop.
Yeah.
These dragon tail style baits, these pointy tail style baits, corkscrew.
Yes.
So they pop up and then they corkscrew. And
Yeah.
it's very enticing action to multiple types of fish, not just trout, but there's a lot of things that eat them. And the snook really like these. It's one of the few baits that I've actually caught snook on in the daytime, sort of in a live bait scenario around the jetties and things, but you can catch them on artificials because of that unique action that they give off.
Well, I might try that tomorrow.
Sounds like a plan.
You get 8 to a pack, and they're 3.7 inches long, and they come in like 10 different colors.
Gotcha.
So berkeleyfishing.com for that.
Well, and how are we going to see those colors?
Well, last but not least, we have the Bahio Greenland. They're called the Greenland because they were, made for just to cover your whole face like a set of goggles. That's part of their tech collection. It's one of the techiest frames that they've made to date. And it's got a large fit, so, it'll fit my big old face.
And mine too.
And the full wrap frame, and it's got the flex hinges on the side, so they, you can't really break them.
It's
interesting. Flex right out.
Compared to the frames that I have now, these feel like they would let more air through.
They do. They have the little vents on the sides as well to let air in and out. And they have that it's like a sun ledge all the way around it.
I see that.
So it kind of blocks the sun. Like I said, it's like wearing a pair of goggles. I mean, they really do a good job of tight fitting to your face. But they don't feel like it. I've had some that you feel like, these are going to fog up.
Yeah.
But they don't feel like it. They're incredibly light.
The other thing they don't do on my particular face, now everybody's face is different, but on my face, my hat brim does not touch them.
Right.
And that can aggravate me because it pushes down on your nose
Correct.
sometimes.
Yeah.
So these are very, very comfortable.
They are, and they have rubber tips on the edges and on the nose, and they have those big holes on the temple. I mean, on the tips back here, the big hole.
You can tie a line
so you can
through
put
them.
whatever kind of keeper that you have.
Cool.
7 lens colors, 3 frame colors, gray, green, and matte, and they come in readers and prescription. So, BahioSunglasses.com.
I'm going to have to get a pair.
Yeah, I
Jim.
love these.
Well, great job.
I might have
Where
to
are we
steal
going
these.
next,
I'm so
Bree?
glad you mentioned that. That's one of my biggest pet peeves is when my hat falls on my
peeve?
glasses, a peeve, and it falls on my
Yeah.
nose, then you get a headache, and then you have to take it
It's
off.
aggravating.
Or they hit you on the
these
back.
are really
Small
comfortable.
head problems over here, right? Well,
I like these
maybe
a
not
lot.
small. Anyway,
These are nice.
in the Alta Equipment East region, kayaking and wade fishing go hand in hand. Being stealthy, quiet, and being one with nature comes to mind. Wouldn't you say so, Holiday?
I would definitely say that, Bray. What I really like about kayak fishing and just like wade fishing is you get closer to the fish by presenting a low profile. And at the same time, it gets you, away from the more populated shoreline areas. You can drop in along A1A on Singer Island and fish Little Lake Worth and Snook Island. Kayaking, you can launch at the Stewart Causeway or Bathtub Beach. Both those areas have kayak launches, and get out there on the Sailfish Point Flats within a short paddle. And up in Indian River County, you can go to Round Island Park, which has a great kayak launch, and you turn right and you're right on the moorings flats, one of the more productive areas in Indian River County. What's nice about kayak fishing is it gets you away from those areas on the shoreline that are pounded by the shoreline anglers, and just gets you out to the areas that are more untouched, much like you get when you're out in a boat. Now, off Palm Beach County, you can launch off the beach near the Lake Worth Pier and just be a short paddle from some great offshore fishing for kingfish, dolphin, and sailfish. A lot of those guys like to use live thread fins or jigging spoons. They're the more popular offerings in the blue water. You can also launch really at almost any beach access in the region this time of year and chase those jumbo jack crevalle schools that are out on the beach, or pompano fish off the beach. Or in another month or so, the tarpon are going to be pushing up, and they're a blast on a kayak. They'll give you a little bit of a sleigh ride. Most of those fish in those areas are caught either on jigs or on swimming plugs or top water plugs. So yeah, we have a really great kayak fishing in my region. Now, the other thing we got going, spring is here. The warming weather has the snook fired up. We've got an amazing mullet run going on in all the rivers in the area, in the St. Lucie, in the Indian River, in the Loxahatchee River. That's firing up the Dawn topwater bite along all the seawalls, including the Intercoastal Waterway in the area off Hope Sound. The North and South Fork of the St. Lucie River, those seawalls are going off right now. And as the day heats up, the snook and jacks will just pound any live mullet you throw up on almost any wall in my region right now. There's also a great nighttime bite going on at the Roosevelt Bridge in Stewart and at North Bridge in Fort Pierce. Live mullet, flarehawk jigs, or a shrimp and jig combination are pretty much the top baits in those areas. The average snook in my region right now is 5 to 15 pounds. And I got a cool photo of Charlie DeBay. He got this nice snook off the beach last week and was just throwing a copper juice colored saltwater assassin 4-inch sea shad, and got him a nice fish for dinner.
Heck yeah. Well, tell us about the dolphin bite.
Yeah, you know, it hasn't really fired up yet, but every year the southeast winds of April bring the bait closer to shore, and every year some of the largest dolphin of the year are caught as they push over to the western side of the Florida Straits. You want to start your morning trolling ballyhoo or live threadfins, work them along the weed lines, the color changes, or around any floating debris, and at the same time watch for diving birds or birds that are working their way south. That tends to be the bigger fish. It seems like the best fishing is on the windiest days. The bite's been anywhere from 70 feet of water on out. A lot of anglers are finding fish out in the deeper water when they're out looking for tuna. The average dolphin bite in my region, is going to be 10 to 20 pounds, but we see some really big fish this time of the year, up to 50 pounds or more. I have a photo that Captain Rich Du Bois of Salty Days Charters out of Port St. Lucie sent me. They got a shot of a dolphin one of his clients caught. He got that fish in 80 feet of water off Jensen Beach, and that fish ate a live ballyhoo, or troll ballyhoo, I'm sorry. And then at the same time, this has been an excellent spring for chasing blackfin tuna. The best bites are coming in 200 to 400 feet of water off Palm Beach and Martin counties. There's also been a consistent dawn and dusk bite at Push Button Hill off St. Lucie Inlet. A lot of the fish are smaller blackfins in that 10 to 20 pound class, but there's been some big brutes in the mix as well. You can troll silver, red, pink, or white feathers, or small ballyhoo if you can get them, or you can drift with live thread fins, pilchards, or goggle eyes. A lot of the guys are live chumming the small pilchards in the afternoons, and it seems like the fish pop back up later in the afternoon. And the other option is to drift until you mark the schools and then drop down a jigging spoon and pluck them that way. I have a photo from Captain Chris Britton of a typical blackfin tuna that they're catching out on Push Button Hill. And that fish came on a red, trolled red feather out behind the boat, way back.
Saltwater covered. Let's talk a little freshwater. What's going on with the bass this week, Mike?
Yeah, you know, the last spawn of the year should take place on the full moon next week. And Headwaters Lake in Fellsmere is going to be the place to be. I was talking to Captain Nathan Shellen of OkeechobieBassFishing.com. He said the topwater bite has been consistent along the shorelines and canals that are way in the back of Headwaters. And then there's also been a decent frog bite fishing the pockets in the grass mats in the middle of the day, particularly on the warmer days. If you're looking for numbers, work the edges of the submerged hydrilla mats in the deeper areas of the reservoir. The best bait for that has been a June bug colored Bass Assassin fat job, rigged Senko style with a 1/16 ounce weight in the middle of it. Not too much weight, just enough to get it to sink slowly. And also live shiners have been producing good numbers of bass, whether fished on a cork or just free lined and slow trolled out behind the boat. Average bass right now on Headwaters is 1 to 4 pounds, but they're catching fish to 9 pounds or more. And Captain Shellen sent me a really good photo of a bigger fish one of his clients caught in Headwaters.
There we go.
Earlier this week. That fish ate a live shiner.
Well, that's a great one right there, Mike. We appreciate all of those reports that you gave us tonight. We're going to take your TH Marine hotspots for the East region from here. Captain Mike says tarpon and snook in Fort Pierce Inlet at night on the last of the incoming and the first of the outgoing tides using the big jigs, swimming plugs, and live mullet. Offshore, mutton snapper on the Loran ledges and 75 feet of water off Hobe Sound. Use threadfins, pilchards, grunt, plugs, and you want to use that big old long leader, 40-foot. 40-foot leader.
That's a big old long leader.
But that's how you get them. That's how you outsmart those smart fish.
That's important. All right, if you're cruising around Florida, do it with a cause and rock the Conserve Florida's Fisheries license plate. Your $25 goes straight to supporting clean water, restoring habitats, protecting marine life, and teaching folks about our coastal environment. It's a small tag with a big impact, helping keep Florida's waters thriving for future generations. Snag yours at your local DMV or online at redfishtag.com. All right, Jim, coming up, we're checking in with Captain Pat Deneen in the Panhandle region, and then we are headed to the Casa Vieja Lodge region with Captain Jimbo Thomas. And remember, if you're hooked on fishing in Florida, then don't miss a thing and swing by our website, smash that button on Facebook, reel us in on X and Instagram, and cast on over to our YouTube channel, Captain Rick Murphy, for fresh fishing adventures, reports, and more. We'll be right back.
The Florida Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Startron. Start, run, and store with Startron. Berkeley, your fish, our science. CCA Florida, conserving Florida's fisheries since 1985. Frontrunner Boatworks, performance-built offshore fishing boats made in the USA. The Florida Keys and Key West, come as you are. Murphy's Law Sport Fishing. Book your trip today at murphyslawsportfishing.com. And Strike Zone Fishing.
Okay, Floridians, Jim, this is something new. It's time to seize the social. Every week, we'll be reeling in the best fishing and ocean vibes from your favorite social media feeds. So let's dive on in and see what we found this week. Okay, what's going on here? Oh!
Manatee love.
Oh, it's so cute. Are they allowed to do that?
Hugs and kisses, hugs and kisses.
Hugs and kisses. That is adorable, and that's a kayaker. I have to say, if I was on a kayak, I would want that to happen to me. That might just have made my bucket list, Jim.
Well, I've been in a canoe before, and one spooked, and we just about got everything in the boat dumped.
Oh, well,
So,
that's a little different.
I did like his chin, though. It looked like me after about 4 days of no shave.
I just want a sweet little hug. All right, got a reel that made you laugh, gasp, or want to grab a rod? Send us your favorite fishing or ocean video, and you might see them right here on Seize the Social. To submit, scan the QR code or drop them in our DMs. All right, there are so many species you can target, all from your kayak in the Panhandle region. So let's weigh in on the topic with Captain Pat Deneen. Pat, tell us what we need to know.
Hey, Bree, I tell you what, it has become super popular, both kayak fishing and stand-up paddleboard fishing. And I know a lot of people that are into that style of fishing that own one of each. Use a kayak when the conditions are better for kayaking, like when you got winds or currents, and then they use paddleboards for those purposes. And there's lots of access points. You know, we've got the national seashores, state and county parks. You know, all get access to the Gulf side, and then the bay. You can anywhere you can get your feet wet, you can get into the bay water. And they're fishing redfish, trout, sheepshead. Right now, they're catching plenty of sheepshead inside the bays using kayaks. Bay side, and then offshore, the Gulf side, is redfish, mackerels, tarpons, snappers. I mean, they even target tuna fish in the wintertime, late fall. There's a photo there of George Lister and Seth Williams with 3 fat blackfin tunas that they caught up Navarre fishing the nearshore kayak reefs this past winter. So, pretty diverse fishery for sure. And then staying inshore, the Panhandle's been invaded with the Spanish mackerel. They're along the entire coast, inside and outside of the inlets. You're going to find them around turns, or you're going to see the flipping fish. Troll a Christmas tree rig or spoons, or I've been, having a lot of good luck casting off with spinning rods, casting Berkeley Cutter 70s in the silver colors. This bait seems to be good by the bigger mackerels. You just give it plenty of action no matter what lure you're using. The Spanish are running a couple pounds and up to 3 pounds, sometimes maybe even a 4-pounder involved. Moving offshore, the guys are targeting either triggerfish or mingo snapper, primarily. The triggerfish, they're catching them on natural and man-made structures in 80 to 180 feet of water. And they're using a 2-hook chicken rig, cut bait, both species, either triggers or vermilions. But oftentimes those triggerfish are going to be higher up in the water columns, while the mingos are going to be more off the structure or maybe down closer to the bottom. But there are plenty of mingo snappers being caught as well. I'm saying the same structure areas, but maybe a little bit deeper, 80 to 240 foot of water. And again, that 2-hook chicken rig, or use a light leader on a Carolina rig. Sometimes you can target those bigger mingo snappers. cut squid, cut minnows, live shrimp, and small bait fish are all the baits of choice.
Well, buddy, that's a great report. Take your heroes from on the water.
Snapper.
Oh, wait a minute. We got a snapper first, don't we?
There we go.
There we go. Let's talk about that.
All right, Jim. Thanks a lot. You guys have a great night.
All right. Well, we're going to take your heroes on the water hotspots from the Panhandle region from here. Captain Pat says you want to get out there, check those Spanish mackerel at all the inlets, especially on the incoming tide. Cast flashy spoons, jigs, and hard baits for them. And then offshore, head to the spur and do the same. Do some daytime sword fishing. Use squid, strip baits, and butterflied Spanish mackerel for bait. Get them down deep and get that big old broadbill.
Yeah, all right, Jim. Well, some say the best boat is a friend's boat. But in the Casa Vieja Lodge Southeast region, no boat, no problem. Just grab a paddle. Let's get to yakking, Jimbo.
Yeah, that's yakking, all right. Hey, Bree and Jim and everybody else. You know, most of the new kayaks, they're rigged with rod holders, bait wells, GPS, depth machines. Next thing, they're going to be called boats again. They're getting so big. But they're great for they're great for getting in shallow. But when the weather's right, a lot of people are heading offshore on them. And from Dania Beach, it's about 2 miles offshore to get out to the deep water, and that's a popular starting point since it is one of the closest spots to the Gulf Stream. And on the days when the weather isn't right for offshore kayaking, they're great for fishing along the shorelines of the bays, creeks, the flats, and they're very stealthy, so they're not going to spook the fish as much as you are on a boat with a motor. Now, most of the county and state parks, they are kayak friendly. And there's also a kayak ramp at Chapman Field and also at Snowden's Dam, which are both in South Dade, and they're both great places to explore the western shores of Biscayne Bay. And then when the wind's too much for the bay, kayaks are also great for exploring the Everglades or fishing the local lakes and canals for largemouth and peacock bass. Now, I got a good friend of mine, Joe Hector. He runs the Extreme Kayak Fishing Series, and he has both offshore and inshore kayak fishing tournaments. He has the nation's only kayak billfish tournament, along with the exotic species tournament that's held at Lake Ida, and also the Summer Slam Series, which is a multi-species tournament. And if anybody's interested in fishing those, go to extremekayakfishing.com for more information. Now, staying inshore, got quite a few snook around. Now, most of these snook, they've been biting on live baits, pinfish, herring, and also shrimp are some of the top baits. But any other good live bait should get bites. You want to drift your live baits along the jetties and ledges of the inlets and use a Jupiter rig. Also, you can drop down flare hawk jigs, and also you can troll some deep diving plugs down along the edges of those jetties. And then there's also some being caught around the bridges and the lit docks. You want to drift your live or artificial bait through the shadow lines and work them on the outgoing tide. Got a photo here. This is William Flynn with a big slot-sized snook that he caught in South Biscayne Bay a couple weeks ago. So that's a nice one there. If you look close, you might figure out exactly where he's at. Anybody from down south here. Now, staying offshore, sailfish, they've been coming through in pretty good numbers. There's been a couple of double-digit catches made in the past week, mainly because the fishing conditions have been very good along the edge of the Gulf Stream, that being north current and blue water. But those conditions, they do change overnight, and so we have been catching some in the green water as well. Best fishing has been in 100 to 250 feet of water. You want to use live bait. Herrings, goggle eyes, pilchards, sardines are all great choices. Fish them under the kite if you have enough wind. Also, you can drift or slow troll those baits on the days that you have light wind, but in the last couple of days, wind has not been a problem. Also, you want to keep an eye out for any pre-jumping sails. If you can get lined up with them, get some baits in front of them, great chance of getting a bite or even a multiple hookup. There have been a lot of multiple hookups the last couple of days. Got another photo here. Now, this sailfish was tail hooked, so we fought him for a long time, coming up backwards, and a shark got him, and that's why we got the back end half. Everybody said, how do you catch him if he is hooked in the mouth? So He was tail wrapped. Unfortunately, the sharks have been a big problem. But then we got a few dolphins showing up offshore as well, and also along the edge of the Gulf Stream. I wouldn't call it a run, but there's been enough dolphin out there to make a trip offshore worthwhile. You want to keep an eye out for any bird activity, especially frigate birds, as well as any floating debris. Aboard the Thomas Flyer, we've been trolling rig bait and also R&R mahi magnets, looking for those frigate birds and trolling under them. Once we locate the fish, we've been pitching small live baits and cut baits to them. Then we've also been catching some nicer sized mahis on live baits fished under the kite along the edge of the Gulf Stream. But instead of chasing them, we're just letting them find us.
Right, Jimbo, that was really interesting with the tail hook fish. And you actually got the best half of the fish versus the worst half of the fish. So I would consider that either skill, luck, whatever you want to call that. Congratulations on actually getting something back into the boat that can be utilized even though it got shark. So congratulations on that. I'm going to take your ACR hotspots for the southeast region from here. Captain Jimbo says, look for the snook and tarpon at any of the inlets and around those lit bridges and dock lights throughout the region, and then fish live herring and pilchards late in the afternoon in 90 to 180 feet of water for sailfish, kingfish, blackfin tuna, and mahi.
I love in that snook photo, he said, if you look real close, you might be able to see where it is. Everyone's going to try to be
Everybody's zooming in on that one.
Or pause.
But you know, you always get sharked and you get nothing but the lips and the gill plate.
Right.
And it's like, I can't do anything with that. And so he got
the best.
If you're going to have to kill one, at least you got to utilize it. So
Yes.
Yeah.
The cup is half
Awesome.
full, not half empty. There we go, Jim.
was.
I like your
love it.
style.
I do too.
All right, we're checking in with one more captain here on the Florida Insider Fishing Report. So get your gear ready to go in the Phillips and Jordan Southwest region with Captain Ronnie Houston when we come back. So make sure you stay afloat and don't get sharked.
Don't get sharked.
The Florida Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. Casa Vieja Lodge, 5-star angling in beautiful Guatemala. Fenwick, feel everything. Phillips and Jordan, building critical infrastructure that matters. Castaway Coffee, one taste and you'll be hooked. Sportsman's Adventures with Captain Rick Murphy, fishing for adventure. Berkeley Pro Spec Chrome. And Taco Marine, master the catch.
Today's Power Pole tip of the week is about the Power Pole charge. And you know, the reason why I love this battery charger so much is it's 4 systems in one. Remember this, it's very lightweight, the lightest charger that I know of, with it being 8 pounds. The other thing that I love about it is I have the ability now to charge my batteries when I'm running back to the boat ramp after using them all day long. So certainly that's something that I like. But also a third feature that is really one of my favorites is I have the ability to transfer the charging from the engine to the trolling motor batteries, and I can charge that way. Or if I need to charge up my engine battery, I can simply slide through the app and make all that power go towards that engine battery. So I have the choices when it comes to being able to what I'm going to charge. And the fourth reason I really love it is because of the emergency start feature. I have the ability to click on the emergency start feature, use the battery juice that I have stored, and guess what? Jump that battery so that I can get home from being 20 miles out in the Gulf. If you have any questions about the Power Pole charge, simply go to powerpole.com, and that's today's Power Pole tip of the week.
I love that Rick made another guest appearance tonight. Miss him. And those are some good tips about Power Pole.
You know, there's so many advancements in charging systems and battery technology and all of those things that are making our lives so much easier. And Power Pole has been a huge innovator in all of those areas.
Absolutely. I totally 100% agree. All right, there are some key components you need to be aware of in the Phillips and Jordan Southwest region if kayak fishing is on your to-do list. So let's see what they are with Captain Ronnie Houston. Go for it, Ronnie.
Well, like always, guys, it's a pleasure being here. You know, over the years, we've talked about kayaks. Several things come into play presently. You know, a late cold front with strong northerly winds, access all through the region, but most importantly, low water for both fresh and salt water. So with no rains, we got low water on the freshwater side, For the late cold front, we've got low water due to northerly winds. Now, water levels being low throughout the region on the freshwater side, lakes and canals, right now, there's an abundance of largemouth bass and peacocks, and you're going to find these fish concentrated either along edges or in groups in deeper holes or troughs on the freshwater side. Now, on the saltwater side, lower tides due to this front and clean water because we're not in rainy season will make sight fishing easy actually throughout the whole region. Right now, many fish in the north end along Bull and Turtle Bay, along as Pine Island Sound, but to the south, several of the middle bays between Goodland and Port of the Island, easy access to get to these areas, and you really don't have to whether foot pedal or paddle very far. The low water right now calls for topwater plugs, floating lures, and suspending lures anywhere from 3 to 4 inches in the hard bait series, along with soft plastic Texas rigs. So right now, throughout the whole region, it's relatively easy and accessible to go out freshwater or saltwater fishing in your kayak and catch plenty of fish. Now, on the inshore side, the snooks. Captain Danny Latham reports snook fishing has really picked up along the deeper shorelines with moving water up in the northern end of the region. Now, Danny also fishes a variety of baits. If you can't get white bait due to these winds we might be having this weekend, he does use a variety of artificial lures, but if you can find the white bait, chumming's going to work up in that Bull, Turtle Bay, Pine Island Sound area. Don't find the bait chumming, live pinfish will also work. Simply some small hooks or some chum, pinfish will come up, small shrimp on a hook. Get your variety of pinfish, you can also use those. But like I said, Danny also fishes artificial, so the Berkeley J workers on your lower tide, but also a variety of 4-inch paddle tails in white and chartreuse like the Bass Assassin Sea Shads. Right now we're going to work with this late cold front we're having in troughs and potholes. So if you can catch the live bait, also chumming is going to work to draw them out of the potholes. But as the tide gets high, get it near the mangroves. It'll draw those fish out from the higher tides to draw them out. And there's a couple nice fish recently caught, nice redfish and snook, fishing the way I mentioned, laid them up.
Very nice ones. Well, let's
side, mutton snappers. A report from Captain Davis Olson. He's telling me right now the mutton snappers are keyed in from 95 to 115 feet of water. He's simply using whole squid on a half-ounce jig head when that tide is slow, so he can get that jig head down on your slower tide. Or they're using a variety of 150-gram slow pitch jigs. But what he's doing is he's using longer leaders. He's using 25 to 40-pound fluorocarbon, and often if you're over a good piece of hard bottom, you can see these fish on your sonar with these slower tides. This is why the key is to use a long, light leader and slower tides. This will get the bait down. And last week I mentioned these guys are going to the lighter leaders to get the better bite. I've got a nice picture of a mutton snapper recently caught while fishing with Davis Olson. Last piece is going to be the mangrove snapper. So right now, he's telling me 75 to 105 feet through the region, and there are the areas you're going to be fishing for groupers. Now the difference is groupers are on the bottom. If you start catching a variety of scattered mangroves, you want to start chumming to get these mangroves raised off the bottom in the water column away from these groupers. That's going to be chumming. He's also telling me, here we go again, 20-pound leaders, smaller hooks, 3 to 4-0 circle hooks. If you start to catch some scattered mangroves while grouper fishing, go to the lighter leaders, draw the snapper up, or if you can't get them to go up, still use the lighter leaders, smaller baits, and use chicken rigs. And you can catch them on the bottom, and the baits he's telling me on them chicken rigs, these are going to be squid or herring. I got a picture of a nice mangrove snapper recently caught. Even though we're having these winds this weekend, or the winds picked up and it was settled, muttons and mangroves were being caught. So after this front pushes through, there won't be a lot of guys out pressuring these fish. Get back out on those lighter days, be able to go out and catch some muttons and some mangrove snappers, according to Captain.
Hey, Ronnie, real quick, you had mentioned that bait could be a little scarce, and I've heard that from a couple of guys that are fishing down in your region. So maybe, you know, the way the tide's running, the way the wind's blowing, something's happened and the white bait's not as easy. So how are you finding white bait if you do find them? Have you found any particular key way to find those baits, or are you just going straight to the pinfish?
Right now, what most guys are doing, if they can't find the bait on the inshore side, most guys are either running on the nearshore side and looking for birds, but a lot of guys are also just going out to the artificial reefs, wrecks, or a lot of some of these areas that aren't artificial, smaller wrecks that are noted, and you can Google wrecks through the southwest coast of Florida. Getting out to some of that nearshore stuff might take a little bit of work. You're going to have to throw might go down a little deeper. That's how a lot of those guys are catching their whitebait.
Well, that's a great tip, Captain Ron, and only a pro like you would know something like that, so we appreciate you sharing that with all of the audience out there in the Southwest region. I'm going to take your hot spots from here. Captain Ronnie says trout in Bull and Turtle Bay. You want to check those deeper grass, flat edges, and sand holes using the new Gulp Dragon Tails and a noise-making cork with an artificial shrimp under it. Or you can check out the offshore bite, the red grouper from Marco to Fort Myers Beach in 85 to 115 feet of water using cut herring, squid, and even some bucktails or live pinfish, Bree.
All right, well, Jim, I'm tired already just thinking about all the paddling we did around the state today. But for next week's species, having a boat, you know what, will definitely help. So stay with us, Florida anglers, and we'll let you know what we're reeling in next week when we come back. So make sure you keep those lines tight. We'll be back. All right, next week we are talking sailfish.
Cool.
So make sure to tune in. It's one of our fan favorites. And speaking of fans, we're going to have a live audience with us.
Oh, that'll be
and
fun.
it could be you if you could just sign up on our website. Go
Come
for
and
it.
see
We're going to have lots of free stuff. You're going to see Dave. Rick will be back.
I'll be
Jim
back
will
on Zoom.
You'll be back on Zoom.
I'll be back on Zoom.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really
it's been my
appreciate
pleasure. I
it.
love
You're always
coming
the
in.
best. We love you, Jim. You make my job so much easier. What about you, Dave?
I like to talk about sailfish, so I'll be happy.
No, you'll be happy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Jim, if there's anybody you want to say about your Catch a Memory Outdoors
Oh,
radio
happy
show.
birthday, Dad. It's my dad's
Happy birthday, Dad.
Hey.
Catch a Memory
Yeah,
Outdoors
83
radio.
years old.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.
All righty.
Here,
Thank
high
you.
five. Good job.